already laid out what instruments are commonly used for a mold testing service. On this side, I've already laid out what instruments are commonly used on a mold assessment service. So let's talk about the two. All right, so let's dive right into the mold testing service. So during your atypical mold testing service, you would normally have an individual or a company of individuals show up with a number of instruments that look like this. It may be one or more depending on the size of your home, the size of your business, the scope of service, etc. This gem right here is a bioaerosol sampling pump. What this does is this takes these spore trap cassettes, and they are just like they sound. They're designed to actually draw in air from the top of this cassette, and there is a sticky pad inside of here, which essentially traps the spores, thereby spore trap. And then this sample is then taken to a laboratory. This is analyzed by a microscopist, and using direct examination under a microscope, they're going to be able to tell you what genus or genera of mold is actually present, as well as what is the quantitative value that they read in that slide, and they give you an estimated value per cubic meter. Now, sort of the same idea with these two instruments right here. We've got a tape lift sample, we've got a swab sample. Both of these are used to procure surface samples looking for mold and fungi. Sort of the same process, taking a sample off of a piece of drywall that looks like it has mold present, the inside of a cabinet that has some foreign substance that we want to confirm or deny if it is mold. Both of these produce the same result. They go to the same laboratory more often than not, and they're also analyzed using direct examination, and they're looking at the slides as well and providing you with that analytical data. All right, so now let's talk about mold assessment and what makes it different. For starters, you're going to notice there is a lot more instrumentation on this side over here, and that's for good reason. But let's first talk about some of the commonality between the two. Right off the bat, we've got a bioaerosol sampling pump. Identical to this one over here. We've got a swab and tape lift. Again, identical to this one over here. Because we use these devices to collect mold and fungi samples, and because this is an industry accepted form of collecting or procuring these samples, you're almost always going to see these type of instruments on both the mold testing side as well as the mold assessment side. While not required as part of a mold assessment, it can be beneficial in providing, again, that analytical data that may or may not be needed. Now, that said, you're also going to notice some other new instruments on this side. You're going to notice a non-penetrating or surface moisture meter. You're going to notice a penetrating moisture meter. The difference between the two is just as it sounds. One goes right on the surface. The other one has two little pins that actually penetrate the wall. You also have a thermohygrometer. And what this is going to be beneficial in is providing us that data as far as temperature, relative humidity. What's the dew point? How many grains per pound of moisture do we actually have present in the air? All of these paired with a quality visual assessment. Let's not forget about our old trusty flashlight here, but all of these tools and instruments, again, paired with an individual that actually knows what they're doing, why they are there doing that, and the key components of what they're looking for is going to make for an amazing final report, as well as a well-written mold remediation protocol that could be then passed on to any licensed mold remediation company. And simply put, they have to go in, follow said directions, and if all goes well, it should be smooth sailing. So now that we know a little bit about both services, let's make sure that we kind of bring this back in here. Let's not show favoritism toward one side or the other. Let's instead point out the pros and the cons, as well as the differences to both sides. Mold testing, pro, right off the bat, very affordable. Probably one of the most affordable services that you will find within the mold-related services industry. That said, what you won't get with this is identification of what the cause or the source of your problem or issue, as much as we hate to use those words. What is the overarching reason that you contacted a mold company in the first place? This likely isn't going to be able to provide you that data. That said, It's still very economically priced. And if you're just looking to prove a case of whether there is or isn't mold, possibly in a tenant and landlord dispute, this may be sufficient for your needs. That said, if you're actually looking to get to the root of the problem, maybe you've got a lot more of a comprehensive issue. Again, we talked earlier about long-term